Okay, so let's do this, people. Let's go into the in place mass and let's see if we can click on this and let's see if we can turn the grid. Remember that? Remember turning the grid different directions, the U and the V? So maybe we'll, and we can do this here where I'm hovering, or we can go over here and say grid rotation for the U, 45, and grid rotation for the V, 45. Let's see what we get. Revit might get really angry with us. We'll see. Well, when we create complex masses, there's times where Revit can't reconcile the sizing and the spacing based on what we've designed. So it's just sometimes a roll of the dice. It says an error occurred. Oh, it changed it. So there we go. That's interesting, huh? So now we've changed it 45 degrees and we've come back out and we finished the mass. And now we've got this mass that's kind of turned 45 degrees, all right? So somewhat interesting. If I go to a top view out here, we can see how the curtain pattern has changed to 45 degrees. So that's kind of interesting too. Now you look on the end how this turns down. You see how it can't reconcile putting a panel in sometimes because of the spacing. So let's go in and play with the spacing for just a moment. Okay, so we changed it to 45. Let's go ahead and see if we can reconcile something different. Let's go in and go to In Place Edit. And let's see. Let's select the mass. And let's change this back to 0, right? And then let's change the grid spacing to something up. Well, I changed it back to 0 on both, so it's going to adjust it back to 0. We'll give it a second or two. Okay, so we're back in here now, and there, it's more back to normal now. Let's see what happens if we change our spacing, because again, if we look at the top of this, you can see we've got an awful lot going on in there. So let's reduce the spacing and see what we get, okay? Maybe something a little more interesting. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to go in, and I'm going to say change the number to 8 and 8 and apply and see what we get when we do that. And people, I've been pausing the video so it doesn't take all this extra time. Okay, that's good. Okay, so you see as we decrease the number, people, look what happens. We get a more, what's the word I'm looking for? A more evenly spaced distribution of the panels, because think about it, it's got to take our complex panel, our panel family, and do what? It's got to go in and adjust it. So now again, let's go in and see if we can play with those colors a little bit. So we have to go back into the family and we'll go, let's see, let's hover, tab, click on that, and now we can go in and edit this family, right? And you see how we got that material for each. Now, this might be a little bit of a hassle. Let's go in and let's adjust that material, aluminum glossy. Maybe the glossy isn't going to work all that great for what we're doing. So let's create another one. Or you know what? Within this one, let's do this. For the appearance, you see there's some transparency in there. What if I put transparency 0? So now that the transparency is 0, right? And I say save, I click on this and click save. Yes. And then I say load into project and close and say overwrite existing version. We'll see what it does. So remember, it's going through and it's trying to adjust and change each one of these. Okay, we'll hit OK. Uh-oh, looks like we created a bit of problem for myself. Let me go backwards for a minute. Put that back. So obviously it didn't like the change I just made. Maybe I'll try it one more time and see if I can adjust it. I'm just going to hit finish mask. You can see how it's got that red, but it's still glossy. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and try and adjust that. So I'm going to go in, maybe if I change this color just to regular red. Okay. And then I say 0 transparency, right? And okay. And again, I'm going to save this. Yes. And load into project and close. Overwrite the existing version. And let's see what Revit does with it this time. So again, I found out it doesn't like me. It didn't like me changing the color or the transparency on that one. I'm not quite sure why that's doing that. I might have to examine that. So I'm gonna go ahead and just finish the mask, and I'll go ahead and save this video. Play with the changing of your U and your V in the divisions on your mask, but I'm going to try and go back in and see what the problem is with just changing the transparency and the color there. Okay, and then we'll pick up in the next video.